1. Sincerely hope that all of you are doing well and in great health. I'm confident that today's episode will be a real treat for you, and here's why. Today I have something incredibly special, one of your most favorite topics, a story about black magic. Yes, today's story is filled with mystery, wonder, and a little bit of thrill. And guess what? After that, we'll dive into an intriguing tale collected by Nahid Bai. Believe me, both these stories will take you on an emotional roller coaster. Since we're live, I want you not only to listen, but to stay connected and engage with the experience. Without further delay, let's dive into the story. This is a story that was sent to me exactly as it came. It begins with a message. Assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you? I didn't ask because I know you are cherished by the love of millions, and you're undoubtedly doing well. My name is Feroz Khan, and just like always, I've collected a story for you today. I hope you enjoy it. Now, let me tell you, many people don't believe in black magic, and some don't even know much about it. Some dismiss it entirely. That's why today we are sharing this story, and I hope you'll listen very closely. The story begins with a man named Arafat. He didn't believe in black magic or anything supernatural. In fact, he didn't believe in religion either. He was a wealthy businessman, very successful, and had a habit of traveling by train. This time, he was on a 2-week trip, starting from December 20th, 2017 to January 5th, 2018. As he sat in the train, sipping tea and waiting for the journey to begin, he hoped for a pleasant companion to pass the long 9-hour ride with. But instead, someone unusual sat in front of him. A strange man with wild hair, wearing a black robe, adorned with amulets and beads around his neck, carrying an old rusty trunk. Arafat quickly realized that this wasn't going to be the peaceful journey he had hoped for. After about 25 minutes of silence, the strange man suddenly started speaking on his phone. "Believe me, this will work. I've been doing this for 30 years. Arafat listened curiously. The man continued talking about something that seemed like business, but in a strange, mysterious way. Though it had nothing to do with Arafat, he couldn't help but overhear. The man ended the call and briefly glanced at Arafat before turning his attention back outside. Arafat felt a tinge of curiosity growing inside him. What was this man talking about? Suddenly, the man spoke again, this time in a low voice. "We use the Quran too, but in a way that gets results," he said softly, his eyes gleaming with secrecy. Arafat was intrigued. Could this man really be involved in black magic? A topic Arafat never believed in, but one he had always been curious about in his youth. Stories of paranormal events always fascinated him, even if he dismissed them. He wondered if this man could somehow prove the reality of black magic. Could it be possible? And more importantly, could it bring back Sana, the woman he loved but had lost 3 years ago? 3 years earlier, Sana had left Arafat to pursue a life of faith, saying she could no longer engage in a haram relationship. Arafat still loved her deeply. He would do anything to bring her back, even if it meant dabbling in something as far-fetched as black magic. Without much hesitation, Arafat asked, "Do you perform black magic?" The man was caught off guard. He seemed to hesitate, unsure whether to admit the truth. But Arafat persisted, convincing him that he was serious. "I want you to bring back my lover," Arafat said. "I'll pay you whatever it takes. She left me because of her faith, but I still love her." The man thought for a moment and then nodded. "It will take 7 days and a lot of money," he said. Arafat agreed immediately, desperate to see if this bizarre supernatural method could bring Sana back to him. The man gave him instructions to provide something personal, like hair or a piece of clothing from Sana. Arafat thought for a moment, then reached into his bag and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper, a letter written by Sana in her own blood when she had been angry. The man's eyes lit up as he saw the blood-stained letter. "This will work," he said, taking the paper from Arafat. "Tonight, I will start the ritual. By morning, you should start seeing signs." Arafat's heart pounded with anticipation. Could this really work? Could this man, using some ancient ritual, actually bring Sana back into his life? As the night deepened, the man began his ritual. He took out small figures, needles, and strange powders. Arafat watched in both fascination and discomfort as the man performed his incantations. There was something eerie yet captivating about it all. Around 3:30 in the morning, Arafat suddenly woke up, his heart racing, but there was no call, no message. He looked over and saw the man, still awake, muttering under his breath. The suspense builds from here, and I'll leave the rest of the story for another time. What do you think will happen next? Will the ritual work? Will Arafat get what he wants? Or will it all spiral into something unexpected? Stay tuned for the next episode where we unravel the mysteries of black magic, love, and the supernatural. What an incredible story. There's such a beautiful, meaningful lesson here. My God, it's truly beautiful, man. Just wow. Reading this story has filled me with so much joy. The story is on another level of mastery. Just wow. I really hope you all keep sharing such amazing stories. Dear brothers, the way you share these incidents with us means the world to me. It's such a huge blessing to be able to hear them. This is absolutely mind-blowing. And I request everyone, please share these stories. It's my humble request. Share them in the most amazing way possible. The stories you send us, believe me, they are getting shared. It's not like they're just sitting somewhere. So, from wherever you are, please try to send in your stories. That way more people will get to hear your incredible tales. This is a fact I always tell you, and I'll say it again today. Send us more stories. We will share them with the world. All right, I won't delay any longer. Let's move on to the next story. Ferozbai, you're a legend. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope everyone enjoyed the story as much as I did. When you love a story, it makes the whole effort worthwhile. And I know today's story will have the same impact, inshallah. Let's jump into the next one. The story, as it came to me, I'm going to read it exactly as it was written. He wrote, "My name is Nahid Sarkar, speaking from Bandarhat, Chittagong. For the first time, I'm sharing a ghost story. If you enjoy it, feel free to narrate it." So let's dive into the story. This is something I heard from my uncle, who is around 90 years old now. I'm going to share the story exactly how my uncle told it to me. The story begins on a cold winter night. My uncle and his older brother had gone to see a traditional play, a jatra, in a neighboring village. As it was winter, most villages would host these jatras after dark, and that night was no different. They had snuck out to see the performance because they knew their father wouldn't allow them to go. After enjoying most of the play, my uncle's younger brother started to get anxious. "Brother, let's go home. Father will be so mad," he said. Seeing his little brother so scared, my uncle agreed. So, they left the play before it ended and began walking home through the silent streets. The road was covered in thick fog, so dense that they could barely see a few steps ahead. As they were talking about the jatra, something caught my uncle's brother's eye. "Brother, what's that sitting on the road up ahead?" he whispered, pointing. Looking ahead, they saw a large white cat sitting right in the middle of the path. The cat was so white it stood out even in the darkness. They both stopped, staring at the strange sight. The cat didn't move. It just sat there, staring right back at them with unblinking eyes. After 5 minutes of tense silence, my uncle's brother whispered, "Brother, let's hit it with a stick." They looked around for something to use, but by the time they found a stick, the cat had vanished. Shaken, but not overly concerned, they hurried home. But as soon as they arrived, their father was waiting with a stick of his own, furious that they'd stayed out so late. He chased them around the yard, threatening to punish them for disobeying him. Out of breath and with no other option, they ran to the nearby schoolyard to escape their father's wrath. The school was known in the village to be haunted. It was said that strange things happened there at night. Voices, footsteps, even the sounds of motorcycles revving and people dancing on the roof. But the boys didn't have a choice. They settled in a classroom and laid down for the night. Everything was quiet, except for the cold that crept in. Suddenly, my uncle's brother felt something pulling at his foot. He thought it was nothing, so he ignored it. But soon, the pulling grew stronger, dragging him several feet across the floor. He panicked and whispered to my uncle, who told him not to be scared. "Just hold on to me and sleep," he said. But not long after, my uncle felt it too, a freezing cold hand gripping his foot, slowly pulling him. He tried to move, but he was paralyzed, as if something heavy was pinning him down. In complete terror, he started screaming. But the strangest thing was, no sound came out. It was like his voice was trapped inside him. After a few more terrifying moments, the pulling stopped and everything was silent again. That's when they heard it. Loud noises coming from the next classroom, as if people were dancing and talking loudly. But when they looked around, there was no one there. They were all alone in the dark, haunted school. And then they saw it. The same white cat from earlier, sitting by the door, staring at them with those same unblinking eyes. At that moment, both brothers bolted out of the school and ran all the way home without looking back. The next morning, when they woke up, they were covered in mud, and their father asked them where they had been. When they told him everything, their father hugged them tightly, tears in his eyes. "I should never have forced you to come home that night," he said. Everyone's favorite story of Solaiman Jinn is here, and I hope today's episode will be very enjoyable for you. I will begin with Solaiman Jinn's first incident, which is quite chilling. After that, we will hear two stories from Firozbhai, Kanasan's stories, and they are very unique and intriguing. I won't delay and will jump into the story right away. I am sharing the story exactly as it was shared with me. The writer said, "I hope you're well, but I am not doing well at all. As usual, I haven't given my real identity. My name is Shakil." The incident I'm going to share today happened to me personally, and it's an unusual and painful one because it involves a close friend of mine. Without further ado, let's dive into the story. It dates back about 4 or 5 years. The incident took place in a nearby area of Madhupur police station on Malabari Road. Something is there in that area, which has caused many people to lose their lives. Everyone who has died there has met an abnormal end. Some were found without their hands, others without their legs, or even their heads. After every few days, an accident happens there for no reason at all. Let me explain from the beginning. It was during the time of Eid after Ramadan. Ramadan had just ended, and Eid, the day of joy, was here. I could have never imagined that something like this was waiting for me after Ramadan. Everyone was celebrating Eid happily with their families. In the evening, all my friends gathered for a chat, talking about how they spent the day. In the middle of our conversation, Rakib suddenly said, "Hey, let's all go to Tangale DC Park tomorrow and spend the whole day riding motorbikes." I immediately replied, "No, I can't go. My family won't allow it, and neither will yours. It would be better if we organize a small football match instead. What do you think?" Upon hearing me, they said, No, we'll play football another day. If you don't come tomorrow, it won't be fun. So come on, let's go." As everyone finished up and left, the next day they all called me, saying they were heading out. They asked if I was coming, but I told them no, I'm going to my grandma's house. I also told them to be careful and not ride outside after dark. Little did I know that this would be the last conversation I would have with Rakib. After reaching my grandma's house, I finished lunch and was sitting alone in the garden. My mind was restless all morning for no reason that I could understand. Suddenly, I received a phone call from Rakib's younger brother, Shakil. I was about to ask how Shakil was, but before I could, he said something that made me feel like the sky was falling on me. In a tearful voice, he said, "Brother, come quickly to Madhupur Hospital. Rakib has had an accident and one of his legs is gone." After hearing that, he hung up the phone. I rushed to the hospital like a madman. What I saw there was something I was not prepared for. Rakib's lifeless body was lying there, and his family members were crying beside him. Seeing Rakib in that condition, I felt like I had lost my mind. His leg was missing and blood was still pouring out. When I asked what had happened, I was told that Rakib and another person were riding on the road when a bus hit them from behind and fled. The accident happened near Malabari Moor. Although people rushed to the scene, no one could find Rakib's leg. The police searched but couldn't find it either. This incident was very strange to me. Rakib's body was brought home and buried at night. After his burial, I sat near his grave for a while, feeling as if Rakib was calling out to me. I dismissed it as my imagination and went home, but I couldn't sleep. Memories of Rakib kept coming back to me, especially the fact that his leg had disappeared. The next day, I visited a friend who had been injured in the same accident. He wasn't doing well and was on life support. Everything felt surreal. That night, while walking home from the market, I passed by Rakib's grave and heard someone calling my name. I moved closer to listen more clearly, and to my shock, I saw Rakib standing there. He was calling out to me, saying, "Friend, I'm in a lot of pain. Please take me with you. I'm scared of being alone." I was terrified. Rakib, whom we had buried in a shroud, was standing there, his body emanating a strange smell. I stammered, "How did you come here? You're supposed to be dead." Rakib smiled and said, "Yes, I'm dead. When I died, they never found my leg, and that's why I haven't been able to rest in peace." Hearing this, tears filled my eyes. Before I could say anything more, Rakib vanished into the air. I went home, distressed and unable to comprehend what was happening. I thought about Solaiman Jinn, who could solve such mysteries. I told everything to my grandfather, and he said, "I know about Rakib and what happened to him. You don't need to say more." Later that night, I received a phone call informing me that another friend, Russell, had been murdered in a horrible way. Hearing this, I felt as if the sky had fallen on me again. One by one, all my friends were dying. I wanted to see Russell, but my grandfather stopped me, saying, "No, if you go out now, you will be in danger." He explained that it was the same evil spirit that had killed Rakib. He told me not to leave the house at night, as it was too dangerous. My grandfather took me to his room, where he explained the whole situation. He said, Rakib had encountered a black cat on the road. He didn't know it was an evil spirit in disguise. When he kicked it, the spirit got angry and tried multiple times to kill him, but couldn't until that day. The spirit took Rakib's leg after killing him. Grandfather further explained that Solaiman Jinn had intervened to stop the spirit. The spirit had also targeted Russell because he knew the truth and wanted to tell everyone. But before he could, the spirit killed him too. The spirit had now set its sights on me, but grandfather assured me that he would take care of it with Solaiman Jinn's help. Later that night, strange things happened. We heard eerie noises outside, like a storm, and someone crying for help. But after a while, everything went silent. Then Solaiman Jinn appeared again, assuring us that the spirit had been defeated and there was no more danger. The next day, we brought Russell's body home for burial. His body was in such a horrifying state that I couldn't bear to look at it. It shook me to my core. After Russell's burial, things began to calm down, although people in the village claimed to have seen his ghost near the road. Even though the spirit was defeated, the pain of losing my friends still haunts me. I'll continue the rest of the story another time. If you like the story, please share it. This is a true story, and strange incidents continue to happen on Malabari Moor. I hope my sharing this helps people be more cautious, especially when traveling at night. Always recite Ayat al-Kursi and Surah al-Jinn for protection. That's all for now. Please keep me in your prayers, as I'm living far from home and struggling through difficult times. I hope you enjoy the next event a lot. Let's dive into the story. I'm telling it exactly as it came to me. I hope you're doing well. I'm Feroz Khan, and I've been sharing paranormal stories for a long time. I hope you enjoy the two stories I'm about to share today. Let's begin. This incident happened a few years after our country became independent, towards the end of the Bengali month of Bhadra, roughly August-September. The entire area was still flooded. Though rice plants stood tall above the water, it was hard to gauge the depth of the water beneath them. Despite the sea of green that stretched to the horizon, beneath those plants was chest-deep water. The water level had started to recede, which meant there were plenty of fish to catch. We would often head to the narrow ridges between the rice fields to catch fish. Behind our house was a small ditch-like area that wasn't very deep, but not completely flat either. The ditch ran slightly lower than the surrounding land, and by the end of the monsoon, it would drain out the floodwater. To the south, about 3 or 4 yards from our house and 50 yards west of the road, there was a jujube tree under which a few years ago, a woman named Aitanessa had fainted during an evening. Since then, the tree had been considered haunted by locals. The ditch stretched from this haunted tree westwards for 200 to 250 yards and had been fenced with bamboo in sections, with small traps set up every 10 to 15 feet to catch fish. The traps would sometimes break when large fish like rohu and katla would try to escape, splashing frantically. We could hear the commotion during the day and rush to catch the fish before they broke free. But at night, if no one stood guard, smaller fish often escaped. One evening, our servant Nadu came to me and said, "Uncle, we'll be setting traps near the bamboo fence tonight. A lot of fish should get caught." I asked, "Why so many fish tonight?" Nadu explained, "There's been scorching sunlight all day, and the floodwater has receded quite a bit. The water is pulling back, and the fish are being drawn in." Agreeing, I told Nadu, "All right, let's go after dinner." Around 8 or 9 p.m., we ate, grabbed 2 pillows, a mat, and some bamboo sticks, and headed towards the bamboo fence. The path was much higher than the flooded fields. We spread the mat in the middle of the road and sat under the clear, moonlit sky. We could see far into the distance, and occasionally we could hear the soft chirping of nocturnal birds. The mosquitoes were also troublesome, so Nadu lit some fire in a little makeshift stove to ward them off. Around midnight, we went down to check the traps. After collecting some fish, we dumped them into a large container near the road, half submerged in water to keep the fish alive for a few days. After that, we lay down on the mat again. Nadu began humming a tune while I lay my head on the pillow, drifting off to sleep. Running and running, he finally reached her house. Reaching the courtyard, he started yelling loudly and banged on the door very hard. He knocked, and then when he looked back, he saw an old woman walking along the path with slow, broken steps. Suddenly, his grandfather opened the door, and he fainted on the spot. The next morning, when he woke up, he found himself lying in bed, surrounded by many people. Afterwards, he suddenly told everyone what had happened, and upon hearing the story, they all said that there had been no rain that night. Moreover, there was no house by the pond where he had claimed to see one. Later, his grandfather took him to a local healer. After listening to the entire story, the healer said that the girl he had seen was in fact a fox, but he couldn't explain much about the strange incident. It was an inexplicable event that remained a complete mystery for life. This was the story. If you liked it, make sure to share it with others. Fact, I hope you all liked it a lot. Ending today's episode here, I will definitely come back tomorrow or the day after. That's all for now. Take care, everyone.